Get started whenever.
This meeting is being recorded.
Alrighty, y'all. Welcome to another lovely Museum Advisory Board meeting. I officially call this meeting to order at 4:30. Let's see, we don't have any public invited to be heard. Or Joanne, do you know if we have anyone?
No, I don't believe we do.
Okay, great. And do we need to go through a roll call, or do you have everybody's names?
Would you mind going through roll call since I'm on my phone today?
Yes, we can do that. Okay. We have myself, Bryden Cook. We have Kaylee Cordova. We have Dale Bernard, Tom Kurtz, Katie McDonald, Ria Moriarty, and Bruce Montgomery.
Thanks, Bryden.
Great. We will move to approval of minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting. Any questions or comments about that before we vote to approve? Great. Well, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Katie. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thanks, Ria. All in favor? There he is. There we go. Looks like that's unanimous. Great, thank you. And we will move on to accessions.
All right. And Tim, if you could keep an eye in case anybody else comes in while I'm doing the accessions.
I will do that.
All right. Share my screen. Can you all see the February proposed accessions to the museum collection?
Yes.
All right, great. So we are continuing to bring in things from our Longmont 150 exhibit. So the first item is a digital photo of the Cowwood fire from October of 2020. That, as you may recall in the exhibit, was a very large photo mural, so very high resolution image. The photographer agreed to donate it and the rights to use it however we wish. So that is a nice addition. Next up, we have another digital collection. This is 4 family photos, and I will point out there's one change from the packet that went out. We got one additional family photo that actually arrived today. So it's the one down in the lower right of my screen that's kind of outlined in red. Just wanted to highlight that we did add that one. But really the one that's probably most exciting for me is the Main Street scene, this view of 328 to 332 Main Street. We don't have this building and this configuration in our collection currently, so it's a really nice addition. And then all of the photos.
What was that, Eric? The building?
So it was there was a barber shop in there. There was a candy store, Bostwick Optical, and today it is it's a marketplace.
Oh, okay.
It's been through about 5 different iterations over its life. So then we have identification on all the people, which is also nice.
Looks better back then than it does now.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe someday someone will restore it and add back these cool bay windows. Next up, again, these were in Longmont 150 COVID masks. These were actually designed by Native American artists. It's one of the reasons why we featured them in the exhibit. And so they're a museum purchase, not a donation. But felt like COVID masks are certainly something that is a part of our history. So we wanted to include those. And then papers related to the LGBTQ experience, both newspaper clippings and newsletters, primarily from the First Congregational UCC Church, which was the first church in Longmont to become what they call open and affirming, where they're accepting of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, transgender folks. It was a real landmark when that happened in the 90s. And then another LGBTQ related item is transgender pride flag. This flag was hanging in the Longmont 150 exhibit. It was kind of high up, so might have missed it, but was actually acquired by the donor at a Longmont Pride Festival. So, you know, Longmont connection as well. And so that is all for the collections. I'll stop sharing, and folks have any other questions on that, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, if there's if there's no questions or comments, we can just move to approving them.
I move we approve the accessions presented by Eric.
Thanks, Dale. Do we have a second? I think I saw Bruce's hand, so thank you, Bruce. That's second, and all in favor, please raise your hand. Great, and that looks unanimous again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. Next, let's move on to report of the museum chair, or the museum director, sorry.
That's okay. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Let's see what we got going on in our director's report. I was reading through it earlier, and you know, we put this together about sometime last week, and boy, how things change even in a week. I'll point that out when I get to it. So we got a grant from the Colorado Creative Industries that was for $200,000. And they really prioritize staff with this grant. And so we are going to be able to increase our registrar, Eileen Chichina, from 3/4 time to full time with the grant. Also, our rental coordinator, Jim Flagmark, is going to move from 1/2 time to 3/4 time. And then we'll also be hiring a full-time visitor services assistant. So we're in the process of doing that now with these grant dollars. These are all really critical functions, and they're going to help us really increase our capacity. The bad news about this is that the grant only goes through September 14th of this year. So the grant will cover those expenses until the end date. And then after that, our fund balance will pick up those expenses through the end of the year. And I will put those positions in as a request during the budget cycle that'll be coming up pretty soon. So hopefully we'll be able to support those through the general fund ongoing. But even if they don't get approved through that process, we will be able to rely on our SCFD dollars for that. So one way or another, those positions will be able to be ongoing. So that's good. And it's really wonderful to be able to get that big fat grant from the Colorado Creative Industries, which is through the state actually. That we also had approved in last year's budget a volunteer and evaluation coordinator. You might recall talking about this a while back. That one is slated to be funded through the money that we received from the Stewart Family Foundation, the $1 million donation that we received, and we've got that money in an investment fund. At this point, where we are is that the Stewart Family Foundation has asked that we put that on hold because they're looking at selling some additional assets. So we're kind of waiting to get the green light before we move forward with that position, but hopefully we'll be able to hire that position soon as well. Beginning on February the 3rd, the Stewart Auditorium became a vaccine verified space, so that anyone age 5 and above was required to get vaccinated and prove vaccination. This is where the report gets dated very quickly, because just yesterday, the Boulder County Health actually rescinded the mask mandate as of 5 o'clock on Friday. So starting at 5 o'clock on Friday, there's no Boulder County Health mask mandate. And so we're waiting to hear exactly what that will mean for the policies that we have in place right now, because a lot of that was largely dependent on that mask mandate. So TBD about what that's going to mean for us, but it's likely that things will be changing. And, you know, part of the reason that that's true is that with Omicron, we did see a really significant spike, but we're now seeing a really significant spike in the case rates going the other direction at this point. And so while we still are in the red when it comes to transmission, the thought is that we'll be in low transmission here in a pretty short time frame. So that was, I think, part of what fed into Boulder County Health getting rid of the mask mandate. We do have some donors that are interested in supporting the museum expansion, and so we're hoping to be able to do some fundraising around that. I may have mentioned this before, but the city manager has asked me to look at what it would mean for us to phase the project so that we could essentially save some money, and won't have the upfront costs that it might if we did it all at once. So we are contracting with our architect again to be able to do that work. So we should see some results within the next, I would say, 3 or 4 months. We'll have some figures about, if we do this part first, how much would it cost? If we do then the next part, how much would it cost, and so on and so forth. So I'll be sure and let you guys know about that. I did share with you guys, I believe last time or the time before, that my boss and the director of community services, Karen Roney, has announced that she's going to be retiring of March the 31st. So we knew before that she was going to be retiring, but she's announced the actual date now. And so there will be some leadership transitions once she retires. And we don't really know exactly what that is going to look like at this point. I have heard that there will be some changes in organization, but that's really all I know at this point. So the museum leadership is going to be changed up here in not very long. We also have I've been working with the folks in the planning department around the STEAM project and working with trying to understand how my participation has been around the performing arts potential. And so there really is a lot of energy surrounding the idea of putting that in the STEAM corridor, which is right there by the river, if you're not familiar with that term. And so they are doing some community outreach to get some feedback. And so I include the link there if you're interested in going to do the survey, and you can see the maps at that website as well. So you can get a better sense of exactly what they're talking about. And so the sugar mill has also become part of that project as well. There's a developer who is now, I think, pretty much on board and working with the owner of that property to redevelop it and see what they can do with some creative reuse of those buildings. So if you're interested in those things, please do go and fill out the survey.
We know what he wants to do with the sugar mill?
Well, I think at this point, the developer is really interested in understanding what Longmont wants to do with the property. There are enormous buildings, and the potential for those buildings is really grand. It could be condos, it could be a performing arts center, it could be, all kinds of different things. And so he made it known that he's not interested in just, making a plan and presenting it. but instead trying to understand what Longmont wants. And there is, I have seen through the Engage Longmont website that there is a lot of commentary about the historical preservation of the site. And so that's definitely a message I think that's coming through in all of the feedback.
Well, the whole thing is riddled with asbestos.
Yes, indeed.
I don't know if they want to preserve the those asbestos riddled structures.
No, my understanding is that they'll basically gut the buildings. So it'll just be the bones of the buildings. None of that other stuff will remain. Yeah, and then there's, you know, so much potential for what they could turn into.
Yeah.
So we will
But
see.
how long has that building been abandoned? It's not the right word, but empty and not used. It's a
Eric?
long time.
Yeah, I might look to you, Eric, to answer that.
Yeah, it closed in 1977. So that's what, 40, almost 45 years that it has been vacant.
It's a long time.
You know,
Yeah,
in the early, when I was at CU, I launched a project to try to document what happened to the sugar beet industry in Colorado and Nebraska, Wyoming, and so forth. And what happened is in the early 1980s, a pair of brothers called the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market, and they bought up all the sugar beet plants and factories. And their scheme, tried to corner the silver market, went bust until they sold off all the assets of the plants and facilities, and they all many of them went out of business. And
It's only, do I understand correctly, Eric, that there's only one functioning now in
Yeah.
Colorado?
Fort Morgan is the only one, at least in northern Colorado. that's still-
Fort Morgan, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the records out of Fort Morgan, actually.
Cool.
I'm surprised that's still in operation. Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
No, it is. It's really interesting, and it's really important for Colorado history, right? So yeah, I think that there really is a lot of energy around being able to preserve a lot of that. And of
Yeah.
course, there are, you know, historic preservation credits that could help with the building. But depending on how that's executed, you have to have a certain allegiance to the historical structure. So, you know, there's kind of a give and take in terms of turning it into something else that's usable, you know?
Yeah, so far, I don't think any sugar factory has been able to be preserved. So hopefully Longmont can buck that trend and somehow preserve the building, but all the rest have been razed to this point. So
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
there's still one or two standing vacant, but none has been able to be successfully reused.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of cleanup. That's definitely sure. Yes. Well, so Bruce, you clearly have some interest in this. You should go and fill out the survey.
I will do that.
Okay, do it.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah. And I do think that there's going to be a public outreach session at some point, but I don't have the details on that yet. So if I do get the details, I'll share that with you guys as well.
Great.
So if you haven't had a chance to see the new exhibition, Washi Transformed, the new expressions in Japanese paper, opened on January the 29th. We had hoped to have a opening reception around the beginning of that, but in fact, we had to postpone it, and that really had to do with case numbers. And so we are looking now at a closing reception. And so I think that ultimately that's going to be right around when the exhibit closes on May the 15th. So stay tuned on when we will be doing the closing reception. It really is a gorgeous exhibit, so I encourage you all to come out and check it out if you haven't already. BRAC in our education department produced and installed an exhibit that's in our portal gallery, just in front of the main gallery there. And he worked with our intern, Elena Orr, and a CU professor to put this together. And it really is sort of the history of washi paper making. And I think it's a really, really informative exhibition and a great complement to the show. And then Jared, our exhibition curator, wanted to thank Eric, Eileen, and our volunteer Eve Lacey, who helped with the installation, because it's a lot of work. Let's see, we are also working with Indigenous artist Greg Deal, and we are looking at an exhibit that he would curate for us of contemporary Native American artists. And likely we will partner with John Lukovic, who is the curator of Native arts at the Denver Art Museum. He and Greg are actually really good friends. And so I think John will probably do a lecture for us and maybe a few other things in conjunction with that exhibition. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be a really important exhibition. Greg's kind of approach to this is that he wants to be able to give Indigenous artists the ability to create without having to think about the market. That if they don't have to think about selling their work, what would they do? And I think that's a really compelling question to ask. So hopefully we'll see some great work out of it. We've also got winter and spring programming kicked off in the auditorium. And so the lineup that you see there is, we've already started with reminders on the 3rd of February. On the 4th, we had Pro Musica doing Mozart. And all of these have been really quite well attended so far. We had, I think I told you the last time, that the last fall was a record-breaking fall for us. And we're kind of hoping that this winter spring will be a record-breaking season as well. Cross your fingers, depending on how all of this mask stuff goes. Let's see, and then also in our education department, despite the Omicron, Discovery Days attendance has also been quite good. They do a really good job of being able to socially distance folks in that room. And so it does become a place where I think parents and kids feel safe and comfortable coming to. So we've been able to create that good environment for them. And then, let's see, this was put together last week. So we'll say 2 weeks ago now, we actually had our first field trip from schools in 2022. We haven't seen that for quite a while yet, just because schools haven't really been doing any field trips. So this is the first we've had in quite a long time. And again, with the case numbers, I'm not exactly sure what to expect, but we're hoping we'll be able to host more kids coming up here shortly. There were 36 kids and 12 adults that went through working together on the Front Range and the Buffalo Harvest. And then we've also secured a teacher, Stephen Lapointe, who is Lakota. And he is going to be teaching for us in our summer camps, the Plains Ways of Life, a cultural education. And that's going to be, I think, a big draw for people to have a Native American actually talking about his own culture. And he seems quite fluent in things like, I mean, he's helping us with the TP to Tiny House exhibitions as well. And so understanding sort of the cultural context of teepees and Plains culture and all of that, it's going to be a real addition to the show and to the summer camp. So we're excited to have him on board and hope to have him for a long time. We got summer camp brochure in the mailboxes in late February. In the collections department, Eric and his team deinstalled the Longmont 150 exhibition and worked to install the washi exhibition. Eileen and Eve Lacey packed and moved all the objects that were on display in Longmont 150, and those got moved back to our museum collection center. And which reminds me, at some point we'll have to go back out there. I know there's some of you have been able to see it, but some new folks haven't seen it yet. So we'll have to have another meeting out there at some point. It's pretty impressive. Let's see what else. We've got museum cabinets coming, and we'll install those out at the MCC as part of the textile move. And Eric and his team again are going to be working on getting things lined up for the textile move. happening probably beginning in March or so. Let's see. Eric's talked to you guys about this too, but it's included in the report that he has worked with folks who donated things for the exhibition to turn those into loans, from loans into donations. And so he's been quite successful in being able to pull those into our collection so that we've got that in our repository. In Art and Public Places, we've got a couple of new commissioners on board, Michelle Jones and Laura Rutledge. And then we've got a new liaison, Shakita Yarrow, who was recently voted onto City Council. And so she is really interested in engaging youth. And so I think a lot of her focus is going to be making sure that the Art and Public Places, and I think everything, but being in that role on the Art and Public Places board, I think she'll be using that opportunity to pull in youth of the community. Then also in partnership with Parks, Art and Public Places is investigating some materials to use in the Kitely neighborhood basketball court mural. So this is something that Angela has been working on for some time, to be able to do these street murals or flat murals. And once we're able to figure out the materiality of it all and its preservation, then I think she's going to be able to use that same model all over Longmont, and we can do, basketball courts and all kinds of things that we'll be able to use that technique to do. I don't know if you guys have been to the Civic Center lately, but there is an Art and Public Places piece that has been deinstalled from that space, those sort of colorful flags that are along the main corridor there in the Civic Center. That piece was examined by a conservator, and really there was no return. It was really quite damaged from the light in that space and had been there for quite some time. And so we deinstalled it and had it really examined, and the conservator looked at both the fibers and the colors, and there really wasn't anything to preserve. So that has been deaccessioned and taken out of the collection. So Angela's working on a new public art piece that will go into the Civic Center. So that's going to be coming down the pike. In visitor services, we closed for a week in January while we were working on the install and deinstall of the exhibitions. And so we missed a week for our gift shop sales, but even with that, they were pretty strong. We've had a lot of materials there that were kind of a preview of the washi exhibition, and those really sold quite well. And then we also had membership sell quite well, kind of in anticipation of washi. Washi has really been a great exhibition for us and very popular so far. So we're getting some good visitation. We had 140 visitors on opening weekend. And then as we talked about, we're postponing the opening reception, but we had already put it out there in our newsletter. So we did have some people show up that night, and we gave them passes to come back when they are ready to enjoy the closing reception with us. So that'll be a good thing to be able to provide a little bit of customer service for them. And we've got some new folks coming in as front desk people. I mentioned that earlier, and there'll be one full time. And then in our development department, Megan has been working on lots of grants. We did have 2 that were outstanding, one with IMLS and one with NEA. And both of those were to help us support a community engagement curator. And we didn't get either of those. And so we're still going to be looking into ways that we can pay for it. This sort of community work and sort of being able to amplify the stories of people in our community has become a very big priority for us. And so trying to figure out how we fund that position is going to be a very big priority for us. So we'll keep working at it. Megan also applied for funding with the Longmont Community Foundation, their Live and Give grant. We're working on an application with the Longmont Community Foundation for the Left Hand Giving Circle that'll help support summer camps. And then we also are working on some Giving Club tours they're going to happen in just a few days. on the 18th. So we're giving some personal tours. Eric and Jared are have some slots that they are going to be giving tours, and they may be already taken. I'm not sure. But if you are a Giving Club member, you should check out the email that came from Megan and Eric. You may know off the top of your head. Do you know if those are full?
Last I knew, there were still slots for the morning, the 9 and 10 a.m.
Okay.
tours. I think the afternoon ones are full.
Great. So let us know if you're interested in that. In terms of marketing, the 2020, the winter newsletter is in people's mailboxes. So hopefully you guys received yours. And as I mentioned, we've been getting a lot of attention for the washi exhibition. So we include hyperlinks to a lot of different media coverage, which has been really wonderful. We've been really pleased with the attention that we've been getting. So you can check out some of those hits in media. And that's the end of my report. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I just have a quick question. The washi exhibit is incredible. It's really beautiful.
Thanks,
Really
Katie.
enjoyed. I look forward to actually going back again and seeing it
Yeah,
again.
it's beautiful.
I was just curious where it came from. Who curated it? Where's it come from?
So we rented it from an organization called AINA, International Art and Artist. And they've done, I don't know if you would recall the Above the Fold exhibition that we had a couple of years ago. This is from the same organization and the same curator put both of these shows together. And they just sort of consistently do high quality exhibitions. And so we've been really pleased. And you should have seen the crates that came in. I mean, they were just gorgeous crates, you know? So
I can only imagine.
yeah. So it's good for us to be able to do these shows. They're less work than exhibits that we build and put and curate ourselves. And so we're always keen to do it when we're able to, because it allows us to sort of focus some production elsewhere. So as we speak, Jared and his team are working on building the TB to Tiny House exhibition. So it gives us a little flexibility to be able to do that. Any other questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I had two questions or two
Sure.
comments. With the city manager wanting it the expansion to be phased, possibly, it'll be interesting to see what the architects determined to be the extra cost of phasing it out. I mean, phasing it over a number of years as construction costs go up and materials and labor. It may become cost prohibitive long-term if it's stretched out too long.
Right. And I think that he recognizes that. If I understand his motivation, I think that he's thinking that we might be able to have one pot of money now and maybe have another pot of money later. And so it really is just an investigation to see what it might look like. I totally know where you're coming from. And I think that Harold, the city manager, knows that as well. But then the other component of this, which is like hard to calculate, is that, during COVID and the supply chain, we saw prices jump dramatically. So we may actually see prices come down, so it's difficult to know exactly what to expect.
And difficult to predict, I would think, because we don't know what lies ahead as another crisis that might develop. But and my second question was, I'm thinking a number of years ago when I first moved to town, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you had Colorado Festival Productions screen films at the Stewart Auditorium. And I was just wondering, I see we're having Biff come in, but I just was curious, is there a major charge for the auditorium for an organization like Biff, or how does that work?
Oh, for Biff, we basically split the cost. I mean, we split the revenue. And so that one is an arrangement where we co-present and we do a ticket split. So, you know, there are lots of different arrangements in terms of the way that those financials work, but for BIF, that's the way that it works. And I wasn't here when the other film festival that you're talking about was there. I don't know if Eric or Joanne has any
Well,
insight.
the reason I mention it is they're local also. And they do about, depends, 3 to 4 film festivals a year in the region. And each one has a little different theme.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have one Saturday from all day and into the evening locally downtown. Not at the theater, but at La Vida Bella restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just curious. I just thought the Stewart would be maybe a better venue for them as for a film festival, but I didn't know if there was somebody they could talk to.
Joanne or Eric, do you guys know anything about that history?
I off the top of my head. But
Yeah, I don't remember. I know in the early years, we experimented with a lot of different programs and different revenue models and things. So it may have been that was under an earlier revenue system. But yeah, I don't recall that particular film festival.
It's just something I wondered if the museum had an interest in working with also another local film festival product group.
Tom, certainly, if there's anybody that you know there, have them get in touch with me, and we can at least have the conversation. I don't know the answer to the question, but I'm happy to chat with them.
Okay, great. I'll be seeing a number of them on Saturday at the festival, so just wanted to ask.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, no, thanks.
Thanks, Kim. Do we have any unfinished business? I guess we'll move on to that. Joanne, do you know if we have any left over from last month?
we do not.
I did not think so. Great. Any new business or board comments? Looks like that's pretty quiet too. Well then, I'm happy to call this meeting adjourned. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. All in favor? Let's do that. Excellent. At 5:08 p.m., this meeting is officially adjourned. Take care, y'all.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.